keep going on the product even if it doesn't show early results. Just keep working on it a lot if you're sure it will work until it does. Your expectation needs to be at least you need 2 to 3 years to get something to work. The first one I didn't even launch. I built it and then I didn't have the courage to launch it. Usually people will say that it's very exciting. It is exciting, but it's very nerve-wracking.
In today's episode, we have Ali, who is the founder of Instatus, which is at instatus.com. It's a proactive status page provider designed to help companies communicate service outages and updates effectively. Ali has successfully grown Instatus to serve over 850 customers, generating a monthly recurring revenue of $32,000 a month. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. So first of all, you had a background in computer science, computer engineering. You graduated from school with that degree. And yes, you worked as a software developer for a year and a half before starting Instatus. Was that always your goal to eventually start your own business? Tell us more about what made you switch from the career track of being a software engineer at a company to then starting your own?
Yeah, I've always been interested in startups. So while in college, I started working on stuff. But then when I graduated, it's a force pushing me to go through the traditional route, going to a software engineering position. Don't know why I did this, but yeah, I learned a lot. And then I just left the company and started doing projects until something started to work. That took about 3 years for something to start working, getting money.
Okay, interesting. You want to talk about that because someone might think that you were a software engineer at the company and then all of a sudden had one idea and that idea was Instatus and it took off right away. But it took many years, more time than you spent being a software engineer to finally land on something that worked. So as you talk to us about that process, so you quit your job and you went full time into just trying different projects?
Yeah, so I tried a lot of projects and I launched them on Product Hunt and on Twitter and stuff. Some projects worked in terms of traffic, but nothing worked in terms of getting MRR and stuff until Instatus. But even in Instatus, I kept working on it a year for it to start getting ready. My advice is to keep going on the product even if it doesn't show early results. Just keep working on it a lot if you're sure it will work until it does. So I think there's a minimum amount of features for people to buy it. So you need to reach a certain amount of quality and a certain amount of features, especially if you're entering a market that's already established and it has competitors. You need to be better than them for it to work.
Yeah, so during these 3 years where you're trying on different projects, I'm curious, how many projects are we talking about? How many things did you try to launch that ended up not working until you hit Instatus?
I think it's 3 or 4. So the first one, I didn't even launch. I built it and then I didn't have the courage to launch it. But the more you work on something, the more it becomes more difficult to launch it because you've worked on it a lot and you spent a lot of time, so you want it to be better.
Yeah, that's a good point that I never heard someone talk about, which is that there is a downside to working too much on something before you launch it, because then you become more, maybe even emotionally invested in its success, and you just are more fearful of the outcome of that launch. So I'm assuming then that teach you that not to spend so much time on something before you launch it. What did that first project teach you, which you spent time on it, but it ended up not even launching into the market?
Yeah, that's correct. So I learned that you shouldn't start with your life project or something that's too big. It's better to start with very small projects that you can launch easily and you don't have a lot of emotions invested in. And then you can try more difficult projects that would actually be a business. So just get your flow of launching and being able to conquer that fear of launching first with smaller projects. And then you can get on to larger projects. Don't wait a long time before you launch. So maximum 3 months or something. Because a lot of the learning is through customers. Once you launch, you'll learn a lot from customer requests. What do customers really want? Even it will let you adjust your pricing, adjust your features, your priorities, understand what customers really need. You should launch as quickly as possible. You should try to have a minimum set of features for it to be useful. and a certain quality, but don't like go too far. Or don't try to like launch a fully featured product with all features, all the bells and whistles, dark mode, and don't just do everything all at once.
Do you remember how long you spent on Instatus before you launched it?
I think 3 months, but at first it was called Substatus, and it was a very different vibe and a very different target market. I've targeted to like startups at first, and it was like light mode and very friendly, and had pink stuff and stuff like that. And then I learned that the real people who are interested are usually bigger companies, because for status pages, you need to have a big amount of customers for people to care about an outage. So if you don't have customers, there's no one to care about. There's no one to care about your product. So you don't need to even communicate about your status. So I learned that bigger companies are the ones who are interested. So I stopped targeting startups and switched to bigger companies, made it look more established or more like the branding itself made it sound more professional, all dark mode, and made the domain more professional. I rebranded it. I targeted pricing towards like bigger companies. So I introduced flat rate pricing so that bigger companies find it more attractive to switch. I changed a lot about the product and about branding and about targeting. So that's the stuff you learn when you launch quickly. So you learn who are the people who are interested, why are they not buying it, what do you need to add for them to buy. So a lot of customers like let you know that this is like a deal breaker for us. We want this feature, and then we'll buy it. So you start to like understand the real priorities that you want to work on.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about the learnings that you gathered a bit. But you mentioned one thing earlier, which was that you launched in 3 months, but it still took about like a year before you had paying customers and some monthly recurring revenue. How did you know to continue to work on Instatus? Because you had mentioned earlier too that if you're sure it'll work, continue working on it. So is it just a gut feeling thing, or did you see something else about Instatus that made you realize that this I should still keep on working on this for many, many more months, even though there wasn't actual any like financial return yet?
I've been entering like an established market, so I knew if we had like the right amount of features and the right targeting and the right marketing page, we'll be able to get customers because people are already using other competitors. So it's
Mhm.
easier for like you don't need to really like test the market or check for product market fit. Like you need to check for product market fit, but you already know that there is a market. So if you like do it right, you know that there will be customers.
Yeah, that's a good point that you don't have to spend so much time determining if there's a product that the market wants, if there's already competition in this space, which a lot of people try to avoid. Like they don't want competition, but having competition actually helps guarantee some level of success because there's already demand for it. So speaking of that, what did you see about the current status page market that you felt was missing, or that you felt that in status could come and provide that the current marketplace didn't provide?
Yeah. So our main competitor is called Status Page. It was a startup at first, and then it's been acquired by Atlassian. So usually when bigger companies like acquire a startup, it starts like slowing down and it starts being less good. So that was one sign. Another sign is that the product itself is simple. So it's just a page and then you can add to it updates. So it's just like Twitter, and then people can check the recent updates of your status page. So it's very simple to implement. It was very doable for me. And at the same time, the price was very expensive. Some status page pricing starts like at $30. That's not bad. But if you add like some subscribers, you start adding any features like customizations, it goes up very quickly. So people like usually pay $500 a month or something like that for a very simple product. It was a very mediocre product that's expensive. It doesn't show signs of like growing because it's been acquired by a big player. So usually it's not a priority for them because they have Jira, that's their main priority. And that really happens. It's not like a high priority for them at all.
So most of your customers that you get are did they already have existing status pages and they were using like a status page or a competitor to you, or did what was this their first time trying to implement a status page?
So both kinds of people come. So some people come from sales page or from another competitor, and then they switch. We have like a switching tool to help them with that. So you can like migrate all the data from the main tool.
I was going to ask that next. I'd imagine that one area of friction might be that they like in status more, or it's better priced, or they like the features more. But then there's still a lot of friction, especially like a larger company. There's still a lot of friction to migrate over to a new provider. At what point did you introduce the tooling to help with that process?
So very early on, I added like a switch page so that you can add like your current components, your current incidents, everything to your current tool status. And there are also people who come like searching for a solution. So most of the buyers, they just try all the products and then choose one. That's the usual flow of companies. They try status page and they try all competitors and then they choose one. So our main competitive advantages is that we support multiple languages. That's one. Another one is design, like UX. Another one is pricing. I think we are the only one we have that has flat rate pricing. So people come for different reasons, but we're trying to find the negative points of all other products and try to make it our advantage.
What were some things that you learned that you completely did not even consider, or that you were surprised by after you launched and hearing back from your customers?
Yeah. So if you check like any status page, you'll find that they have a very weird thing that they show like today there were no incidents. Yesterday there were no any incidents. The day before there were no incidents. So they have like instead of listing the incidents, they just list the days, and then if there's an incident, they show it. So at first I just thought it was stupid. Just listed the recent incidents on the page, and then like our first customer ever said to us that's not a good look for the company, that we need to follow what our competitor does, which is like just list the days and like show the an incident if it's happened on a day, because it looks better for the company. If you open a page and you check the recent days had nothing going on, that's good look. That was one of the learnings. Like you learn a lot of stuff that's counterintuitive when you're actually like in the market. So that's why it's better to just launch early.
Yeah. So when you do launch early and you want to get this useful feedback from customers that you would not be able to get any other way, how do you facilitate it? How do you make sure that you're getting feedback from your customers?
Yeah, just add feedback buttons, make it very visible, prioritize it, make it like look cool, and so that people are encouraged to add feedback. So for example, one of our pages on the dashboard has like third-party components. So we have a feature called third-party components where you can add a third-party status page to your own status page. Like you can add like the status of AWS on your own status page. So we have like a big button to suggest the service. Because we have a big button there, we get like most of our feedback comes like, please add this service. So the more you make bigger buttons for feedback, the more you'll get feedback. Also, if you're adding a new feature, make sure to add the feedback button, because early feedback for it is important to it specifically. So yeah, just like put it front and center. Also, at first we had like a Slack community where people can get customer support, ask questions or give feedback. Some people do it on Discord. So that's another thing where people are encouraged to, because it's already on their Slack, so that they can just ask us for stuff. We stopped doing that because it was difficult to manage. And with time, it made it look bad, because people are always like, this is not working. This is like, it's better to do customer support in private. That's how we learned. But at first it was helpful because it pushed us to fix things quickly. And it also like was very good for feedback.
Yeah, I guess the different ways you gather feedback changes as your business goes through different stages. But it sounds like if you are launching and you want feedback, it's just as simple as asking for it in a very visible way on your website or your app or whatever you're building. So you credit acquiring your first users through Product Hunt. Talk us through like what that preparation looks like before, and how much time did you spend on your Product Hunt like page or launch? Like what was involved in it?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on it. I'm not sure if it's like 100% required, but yeah, I spent a lot of time on creating a video. Some people just like buy our product just for the launch video because they like it. With a launch video, my post on Reddit was like this. I spent like 3 months working on the product, and spent a week working on a video, and the video got more attention. So that was like the title to attack people on Reddit. So yeah, I spent a lot of time working on a video, on good screenshots, having like a first comment that's good, a good description, At the time, they had GIFs like as the avatar, but now it's like a normal avatar. But at the time, I used to work on the GIF itself, like make it animated and like to attack people. I also like use someone to hunt the product. Like I don't hunt it myself. So that's my advice as well. Like find a popular hunter, because currently product hunt just is difficult to feature people. Like it's difficult to get featured on product hunt. And if you're not featured, you're not even in the list. So people won't upvote you unless you get featured. So it's better to find someone who's a popular hunter. So yeah, have a good product, have a good homepage, have a good video, screenshots, and ask someone to hunt.
So you mentioned as well that you worked with an established or popular hunter. And tell us more about this. I've heard of the product hunters before and their importance. Like, are these just regular people that just have had a lot of built a following on product hunt? Like, who are these people?
Yeah. They are normal people. So mine is called Chris Messina. He does it for a fee. So if you have a good product, he'll just hunt it for you. There are other product hunters. They're normal people, but they have a big following on Twitter. And product hunt used to have login via Twitter. And if you log in via Twitter, all your followers go on product hunt automatically. So if there's someone who usually hunts and they have a big following on Twitter, they're probably a good fit. And I think most people do it for free. So you just need to have a good product so that they accept like the hunt, like they accept to do it.
Do you remember what your pitch was to them? Like, what did you have to try? Did you try to find someone that has featured similar products in the past? Like, if someone wants to launch a product hunt and they want to find a hunter, A, how do they identify the right people to approach? And like, B, what should the pitch be like to these hunters?
For me, it was simple. They had already a form. You can add the link to your product. You can add like a description. Not that difficult to get featured because he hunts every day. So they have a process for applying for it. I didn't like have an elevated pitch or anything else. It was just a description of the product and the link, and have some of the screenshots and the video and stuff like that prepared, and then submit them in the form.
So a lot of these people already have some kind of intake form for other people to send them products for them to hunt. Okay, so it's a process around it, and it's like something that's familiar to these hunters. When you launch a product hunt, so you mentioned you spent a week on it, you spent a lot of time on the video, you spent time finding a hunter. Is it because you only get like one shot to launch? Like, are there chances to launch on product hunt multiple times, or you get one shot basically?
You can launch multiple times. You can launch the same product multiple times if you want, but you have 6 months period in between launches. Some people do it a lot, so some people launch every 6 months. In my opinion, I think people, they can judge if it's just you're just launching to launch, if you really have something new. So we're launching very soon, adding new features that are big features. So we're launching the V2. But yeah, I waited like 4 years before launching the V2. So my advice is at least wait a year, at least have something to share, something new to share, a new homepage, new everything, so that it feels like it deserves a launch. Because people there, like they upvote if they're really interested. So they're normal people who are checking the website, and they only upvote if they wouldn't upvote if they aren't like in status 7.0. It doesn't make sense. It wouldn't be exciting for them.
So I'll talk about pricing. So I think you kind of alluded to the fact that pricing is one of your differentiators, and you transitioned at one point from tier pricing to flat rate pricing. And looking at your pricing page now, there's like a starter tier, $20, $300 a month, and then upwards for enterprise. How did you figure out like what is like the right pricing? Did you always have these prices that you have set today, or did you have to learn over time what's the right pricing to charge for your product?
So at first I started with a very normal approach, like tiered pricing, where you have like SaaS page had 30 and then 100 and then 200. So I went did the same, like it was 10 and then 50, and then I went a bit lower, but with the same structure. But then I learned that the people who are interested are bigger companies. So if they're paying maybe $100 on sales page, and for us it's 70 or it's 50, they wouldn't do the switch. It's not like that big of a deal for them. But if it's like a big difference, if they are paying 1,000 on sales page and they can pay $20 a month out in status, that would be a big difference for them. So that's the reason we went with flat rate pricing. so that we have an advantage with bigger companies, because they wouldn't like do the effort to switch and take that risk unless it's something substantial pricing was. One of the learnings that we got is that you need to have like a 10x difference in everything. You need to have a big difference for people to switch.
Do you remember what was going through your mind when you've had your first like paying customer? Like, what was that? How did you feel when you got paid for the first time from a customer?
Usually people will say that it's very exciting. It is exciting, but it's very like nerve wracking. So it was very difficult, to be honest. You feel like you don't deserve it. You feel like things will go like bad, but it happened. So our first customer churned after like a couple of months. Usually the product is not that ready. So they find difficulties and then they cancel. So that happened. You learn a lot from them, but yeah, it's very difficult. Like the first few customers it's a very difficult experience. It's the same experience where when you're launching. So you try to like seem excited and that things are fun and stuff like that, but it's very like difficult emotionally. So you're feeling like you're putting a lot on the line. But yeah, honestly, like I don't like these days. So I don't like the launch days and like first customers, at least for me. I'm not sure if that's the experience of everyone. Maybe if you're launching like a course, it's just the videos that are over there. Maybe that's easier to launch or nothing could really go wrong. But if it's a product and there's a bug, that's really, you're always worried that there are issues that they will face and that you need to be always up because you're on your own. They could send a support request at any time. So it's difficult at first, especially when you're lonely.
So besides pricing, one thing that you've been very intentional about is around cost management. What are some of the biggest expenses around running a business like this, and how have you cut those down?
Our biggest expenses currently are AWS, some sending emails, Mailgun, also WorkOS. We use it for like SSO, SAML-based SSO and RTC. Also hiring, so that's like one of our biggest expenses. I'm based in Egypt, so hiring here is much easier or like much more cost effective than every place. Nearly every place else. So here you can like hire great engineers who are still like very affordable. You can even go above market price and still be like relatively affordable compared if you're hiring in the US or the EU. So that's one. Another one is just taking care that every feature you build or every decision you make regarding like services, that it has like cost, like it has a low cost. So for example, use ClickHouse for stuff like that has a lot of data because it's better, more affordable than relational databases. When you're using stuff that's like that has a lot of data, like logs. Another decision that was good is that we made people pay for their own SMS. So SMS can get really expensive. So we made them like integrate their own service so that if you like want to send SMS, you're just paying for it yourself. And so that we can have lower tiers, pricing would seem better. Not everyone is using SMS, so you don't need to include it in price. But if you're using SMS, you just pay for what you use. So it's better for the user and also better for us. Competitors just like you have 100 credits and you pay for it, even if you don't use it, but we just let them use it their own service. You always need to like make sure you give attention to pricing when you're choosing everything. Also, we use ISO, like Next.js ISO. So all pages are cached. So with status pages, they don't have a lot of traffic and suddenly you get spikes in traffic. So you need to be stable at these times. So the way we did it is that we use caching, like ISO caching for all pages. So even if you get like 100K traffic at once, they all get the same HTML page and it doesn't go through to our backend. It's just cached on Vercel. So that helps us like have smaller instances that can handle all the traffic. If you want your address to be pricing, you need to have all technical decisions made in that way to produce that result. When hiring and when making service decisions, technical decisions, everything.
Yeah, I like the idea of passing down some of the costs that can be expensive, but then also might vary between different clients. So it doesn't make sense to kind of have all customers absorb the cost. It might make more sense to just give it to the ones that are actually using that particular service, like SMS, in your example. We asked you this question before the recording, which is like, if you had to start from scratch today, to start a SaaS, to start a business from scratch, you even mentioned to us that you would probably build an AI product and jump in with the hype around AI. What makes you say that? What makes you say that that is an area that you would focus on?
I think it's real. I think it's not like a fad or something that would disappear. I think people are already using AI for a lot of stuff, for YouTube recommendations, for Netflix recommendations, TikTok. Like there are a lot of stuff that's been successful just because of AI, or that's the main advantage. Also, Spotify recommendations. And with like generative AI, I think it's also like very useful. It's just personal experience. If you go to any cafe or anything, you'll find people opening ChatGPT all the time. They use it as their teacher. They use it as everything. Like it replaced Google for a lot of people. So I think it's something real. Not necessarily that it's financially like as big as the investments they're getting. So probably it's kind of a wobble, but it's something real at the end. So it's something that's valuable, but maybe not that valuable. So yeah, I think it's like the future. The future will have a lot of AI. So for example, I see a lot of products that are using it for customer support, and it really works for that. So at least you can reduce customer support requests using it. So Vercel does it really well. So I've used Vercel support, and it's one of the best AI experiences that I used. So yeah, I would jump with an AI product. And if you check like Twitter, you'll find people going very quickly with AI stuff. It's much easier right now to grow quickly if you like jump on a trend. Yeah, that's like general advice. See the current trends and try to like use them to your advantage.
And I'll leave this last question. You emphasized throughout this interview about, or earlier in this interview, that a lot of people quit too early when they are attempting to build something. And based on your journey, what specific advice would you give to solo founders that are starting for the first time about persistence or consistency and not quitting so early?
First of all, I think if you're quitting your job, I think you need to have like a lot of runway. You need to have like, you can work on this maybe for 2 to 3 years before you start getting a result, or just don't quit and do it while working. And that way you have kind of unlimited runway. So you need to, like, your expectation needs to be like, at least you need 2 to 3 years to get something to work. That's my experience. And it's my experience, the experience of many of my friends as well. It needs a lot of time and a lot like focus to get something to be successful. And also, yeah, I have like, especially if you leave your job, you need to build your own routine. Yeah. So for me, I go to a cafe every day to work from there. I don't like work from home. So that way, like I need to get up every day and get dressed and go to the cafe. So if you don't have accountability, if you don't have like a boss who asks you to do stuff and is following up and stuff like that, it's easy to like get lost. So you need to have your own routine. And like in cafes, for example, I use people as like social accountability. So if you go to a cafe and then you wear headphones and you look like you're working, you'll really work. So it's social accountability. Or have friends that can follow up on you and show your goals to some people to make sure that you really do them. So for me, if I stayed at home, I would just watch YouTube all day and do nothing. Have a bit of a boring life, especially at that time when you're building something new. And yeah, I think that's what worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that that makes a lot of sense where you lose a lot of that routine that you would typically get from like a day job that you certainly will need when you start your own thing. And it'll be even more important in that case, as you
Yeah.
would probably have lesser resources to spend watching YouTube all day than when you had a day job. So that's great advice. Thank you so much for your time, Ali. Thanks so much for coming on here, sharing your journey, your advice, and your experience with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.